Hey friends, it's Carrie. Thanks for tuning in. Today I'm going to do a weekly wrap-up video. So I have 3 books to talk about this week. 2 I listened to as audiobooks, and of course this one I read. This was my absolute favorite this week, so I'm going to save this for last. This was amazing. Thank you, Lisa, for recommending this and letting me borrow it. Wow. Mind blown. But I'm going to save this for last. People, please tune in for this. You won't regret it, and you will not find other book reviews for this book on BookTube. Just trust me, I've looked. There's not very many. Alright, the first book I read this week was The Secrets We Kept by Lara Prescott, and this is one of Reese Witherspoon's book club picks. And this book was kind of advertised as kind of like a spy thriller, and we follow CIA secretaries that are supposed to kind of turn into spies. And I didn't really see it as a spy thriller. To me, it was more of a historical romance. What ends up happening is we follow 2 secretaries, Sally and Irina. Sally is more of a traditional spy. She's coming from the old school OSS operation, so she is trained as a spy, and she will take Irina kind of under her tutelage and teach her some tricks of the trade. And they are part of a plot where their task is to use the best weapon of all, literature, to infiltrate the hearts and minds of Soviets. And one of their tasks is to get their hands on copies of Boris Pasternak's Dr. Zhivago. Now, this is based on an actual CIA operation. So that was kind of a cool thing about this book. It did clue me in on a piece of CIA history that I wasn't aware of. I didn't know about this CIA operation. I did know that kind of vaguely, I was vaguely aware that the CIA wanted, Soviet citizens to have access to things like George Orwell's 1984 and Animal Farm, because obviously they have very overt anti-communist, anti-Soviet themes. But Dr. Zhivago, in my mind, it was so much of a love story. It didn't really click for me how controversial it was. But in this book, we also follow not just the 2 secretaries, but we also follow Boris Pasternak and his mistress. And she goes through a lot of trials and tribulations because she's targeted based on her association with Pasternak. The Soviets do not want this book to be published. They do not want this book to be distributed. So this book was entertaining. I enjoyed it, but it's not much of an action spy thriller. It is more of a historical romance. We do see a couple of romance kind of strands throughout the book. And that's all I'll say, because I don't want to give too much of the plot away if you do end up reading this. Like I said, it wasn't my favorite, and I don't think it kind of lived up to that spy thriller genre, but it did clue me in onto a unique piece of history, and that was kind of cool. So I did like it. It was a solid book, and I would give it a try. Before I tell you about the second book I read this week, if you notice that it is dark here now, that's because I had to leave and go do a few things and come back. So the second book I read this week was The Mist by Stephen King, and this was a reread for me, so I listened to it as an audiobook, and I started it on a morning that was really foggy, so it really set the mood. This is a great little novella. It tells a story of a father and son who are trapped in a local grocery store when this mysterious mist arrives and takes over the town. And it kind of plunges the town into this hysteria, and the best and the worst will come out in people. It kind of reminds me of a couple of Twilight Zone episodes as far as that part is concerned. And of course, it isn't a coincidence that there is a government project nearby called the Arrowhead Project, a secret government project. And we all know I love a secret government project. So I just like that little story. It's a good one. If you've never read it, you probably should check it out. The third book I read this week, the best book of the week, is this one, American Elsewhere, which is by Robert Jackson Bennett. And this was recommended to me by a friend named Lisa. So thank you very much, Lisa. This was awesome. I looked all over BookTube to see if I could find other people who had reviewed this book, and I didn't really find a lot of reviews for this. And I'm really shocked because this is an amazing book. It is quite hard to fit it into a genre. I would say it's a mystery, it's science fiction, it's fantasy, has a little bit of conspiracy in there, so I think it would appeal to a lot of different readers. And even though it is super thick, it's over 600 pages, I was able to easily finish it in a week, and it did not feel, and I read other things too, and it didn't feel like a chore. I didn't feel like I was slugging through the reading. It was great. We follow a main character named Mona. She is an ex-cop. Her mother committed suicide about 30 years ago, and unbeknownst to Mona, her mother used to work at a government laboratory in Wink, New Mexico, and her mother also owned a house there, and Mona inherits this house. She doesn't find out about it, though, until her father dies. And so that's where the story picks up. Her father has just passed away. Mona's in her late 30s. Her father passes away. She finds out about this house, and so she's making her way to Wink, New Mexico. Problem is, where is Wink? It's not on a map. She can't find it. Why can't she find this town? What's the deal with Wink? So there's your first mystery. You have to find out what is... what's the deal with this town? What is so special about it? And then also you're trying to figure out what the mystery is surrounding Mona's mother, and why does Mona not know about her mother's past? And then we're also trying to figure out the mystery around her mother's suicide. And so I will say that your questions will be answered. They probably won't be answered how you think they will be answered. There are several twists and turns in this book. It definitely is science fiction. It definitely is fantasy, but it does take place in this world. Okay, so it is here on Earth. You don't go into outer space or anything like that. There's no world building outside of here. But it's definitely different. I can't say too much without giving away some of the plot there, so I'm going to try not to spoil this book because it is good. There are a lot of heavy themes in this, though. Even though it is sci-fi and fantasy, there are a lot of family themes in this, particularly related to the relationship between mothers and their children. And again, lots of questions in this book, lots of mysteries, and there were even some redactions. And if you know anything about me, that is one thing that piques my interest, because I am obsessed with the JFK assassination. And if you study that and you look at the JFK files, they are full of redactions. And whenever you see redactions, that tells you you should probably be paying attention. And so that was one of the elements of this this book that I found really cool, and it piqued my interest, and I just really liked that part of the book. It kind of added a little something to it for me. So I was really impressed with this book. I really think you should pick it up, and I'm going to stop talking about it now because I already had to cut a few parts of this video because I was scared it gave away too much, and I don't want to ruin the story for you because you really should read this. Especially if you're into fantasy and sci-fi, I think you would like this. And even if you're not into that, because I'm not typically one who reads a lot of fantasy and sci-fi, and I loved it. So definitely worth a read. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe. If you are one of my subscribers, thank you, because I don't have a whole lot, so I do appreciate the few of you who have subscribed to my channel, and I hope you guys have a great weekend.